we are Jalen Jacoby. This is our holiday special. What is it that we do?
We give the people what they want.
Welcome to the very special holiday edition of Jalen and Jacoby. This is the time that you spend with family, and we appreciate you spending this time with us. We're going to hear from you, our viewers and listeners, and we're also going to celebrate some moments of the year. And this is also a time where we exchange gifts. And there were some athletes that got some very nice gifts under their collective Christmas trees this year, and that is the following. We're going to focus on Mookie Betts, Giannis Antetokounmpo, and that man, Patrick Mahomes, because look at these contract numbers. We're now looking at athlete contracts, not in terms of hundreds of millions, but in $500 million and $250 million contracts. Jalen, what does this tell you about where sports is going?
Checks. And in the United States, we have placed a premium on being entertained. And fans pay top dollar in order to see sports and entertainment. There's a lot of gambling also taking place by fans and playing fantasy. So athletes, even though basketball and football have salary caps, players are still getting astronomical deals. And I'm happy to see the Greek Freak stand in Milwaukee. It's great to see Mahomes is going to be with the Chiefs long term. And it was really great to see Mookie get a World Series championship with the Dodgers.
It was really a seminal year in terms of athlete contracts because we look at those three faces. Those are sort of the faces of the sport. Two of those three happened to come away with championships this year as well, and they got paid for it. And we hope that Giannis and the Bucks will get a championship over the course of his contract. Now, Jalen, we were all given gifts this year. We had a very difficult year collectively, and you remember during the quarantine, when all sports were shut down, we all needed something. We just needed some sort of silver lining to this dark cloud, and we got it in the form of The Last Dance, an epic documentary series from ESPN directed by Jason Ayre about the career of that man, Michael Ayre, Jeffrey Jordan. Jalen, take yourself back to those Sunday nights watching back-to-back episodes of The Last Dance. How did you feel while you were quarantined?
Well, just think about it. It was at a time where we were not only dealing with the pandemic, Jacoby, it forced live sports to stop happening. And then all of a sudden we were starving for content. I remember ESPN televised the horse competition. And so for Jason Ayre and ESPN to drop this documentary and then for it to be about the GOAT, Michael Jordan, and show his battles and how he had this physical toughness and this mental ability to uplift himself to a different level. And all of a sudden you start looking at the things he's accomplished over his career, and it's just great to see that embodied in a documentary. It was a great job done.
It was a really good job done. It was something that we all needed as a society because we were all alone in our homes. Restaurants weren't open. Stores weren't open. We were all terrified of COVID-19, staying alone in our homes with our tiny little bubble. But every Sunday night, it just felt like there was this community around this project, that we were all doing something collectively together, which was watching the highlights of Michael Jordan's career. And one of the things I loved about it most is you showed up in this documentary as well, Mr. Rose, on the wrong side of one of those series that they highlighted, and that was the Eastern Conference Finals where your Pacers pushed these Bulls to a seventh game, something that only happened 3 times. What did it feel like to relive that series and be a part of it yourself?
I was just happy to be a young buck playing a role on a team led by Reggie Miller, coached by Larry Bird, and so many terrific vets. And to play in a Game 7 versus the all-time great Bulls, the only time they were forced to go into Game 7 is a legendary memory when you think about all of the great players and the Hall of Fame coaches and people that were a part of that series.
Well, you were one of the players that had to live through that Michael Jordan dominance, but a lot of young people didn't live through it, and they experienced it through this documentary. It was not only that, but it was also in the bubble, the Lakers winning the championship, which sort of reignited something that we've always been discussing, which is, of course, the GOAT topic in the NBA. Who is the greatest of all time, which sort of bubbled back up after the Lakers became the Kings in the bubble, and it was King James versus MJ. Now, you and I looked at some criteria through which that they should be compared. Championships, scoring titles, defensive player of the year, MVPs, finals MVPs. Why did you pick these criteria to sort of really break down the GOAT debate?
Well, it embodies the regular season, first off, and usually the guy that has the scoring title, he was the guy that no one could stop getting buckets. Like, that just, it says something to be that guy. And to be defensive player of the year, like, usually that's two different players. And for one player to be able to do both, it starts to separate all-time greats. And then you start to add other things like scoring titles and championships and things of that nature. And so, yes, we're going to reignite the debate between MJ and LeBron, and rightfully so. LeBron has earned the right to be in this conversation now, Jacoby. I mean, he has 4 championships. They just added, along with Anthony Davis, they had a great offseason. He's going to win a couple of more in L.A., but it still doesn't take away in the race what Michael Jordan has already achieved. Michael Jordan, until another basketball player that I haven't seen comes along or is not in the league, is the GOAT in my opinion. No questions asked.
That is your opinion and your opinion alone. And the last dance in the Lakers championship was just 2 things that happened during this very strange year that sort of refueled this debate. But we cannot discuss this year without discussing some very important things that happened off the floor and the field. And that is where activism, athleticism combined during the fight against social injustice. Jalen, what did you feel about the way the athletes sort of took the lead in this fight against racial inequality?
Well, I'm really proud of professional athletes because so many times, Jacoby, we're told to stick to sports or shut up and dribble if we disagree with you. And at the time where George Floyd was tragically killed along with Breonna Taylor, it was a moment of reckoning in our country. And for the NBA, the WNBA, and multiple sports to take the stand, to use their voices, to use their platforms, it was something that was greatly needed in society.
I'm glad you brought up the WNBA because they often get overlooked for their on-court and off-court achievements, but the WNBA truly led the charge when it came to the fight against social injustice. And I think that we would be remiss if we did this show looking back at the year and celebrated the intersection between activism and athleticism and did not celebrate specifically the work that those young women have done in this vein. Big shout to them. Jalen, it is now time for a special holiday edition of Soft Move or Boss Move. Jalen, we always say we give the people what they want, and part of that is listening to the people. So for this special holiday edition, we asked you, the viewers and the listeners, to give us some questions that were holiday themed. And here's the first one that we got from Instagram, and it is the following, and I love it. They asked the question, soft move or boss move? Combining one big present for my girlfriend's birthday and Christmas since they're close to each other. Jalen, you have a January birthday as well. Can you combine a birthday and Christmas present for your girlfriend?
That's a soft move. It's a cheap move. And it's a move that is going to keep you in the boyfriend zone. Never get you engaged. Definitely never get you married. Will not establish a family with a guy like you. Are you serious right now? There are 2 different days. You give 2 different gifts. You give 2 different acknowledgments. Never try to act like they're the same. Never, ever do that.
Even if their birthday is on Christmas, you still have to do separate gifting. Moving on to our second question, Soft Move Boss Move Holiday Edition. We got this one from Instagram. You can always follow Jalen and Jacoby at Instagram. And it is as follows. Soft move or boss move? To put cheaper liquor in more expensive bottle for the homies. We're going to watch hoops all day on Christmas, and I can't have them drinking all my good stuff. What do you think about Terrence putting the cheap booze in the expensive bottle for the homies? Soft move or boss move?
Big Sean said this. It's a lot of people in your circle, but not necessarily in your corner. So let me get this right. You calling them homies, but then you don't want them to enjoy your expensive liquor. So you're willing to take the time to put cheap liquor in a bottle in front and hide it like it's expensive liquor? Dog, this might be the softest thing I heard of all time.
Soft move. But watching basketball all day on Christmas and NBA Countdown, boss move. Moving on to our final holiday, soft move or boss move. And it is this one. Now, this one is interesting, Jalen, because we all sort of find ourselves in this situation. Soft move or boss move, having 2 separate gatherings because of family members are beefing. Now, number 1, let's be very careful this year when it comes to family gatherings because of the pandemic. But Jalen, having 2 separate small COVID-friendly social distancing gatherings because two family members can't get along. Soft move or boss move?
Well, this is smart, and families do this for different reasons as well. Sometimes you don't want the larger group of the family to get together because it's easier to feed a small group. And so I think this is intelligent to do what you got to do in order to keep harmony. I like this move.
That is a boss move. Thank you so much for your questions on Instagram. We really appreciate you so much. Thank you for joining us on this holiday edition. We will continue. Make sure you stay tuned. We have much more for you right after this. Special holiday edition of Jalen Jacoby coming to you live from Pier 17, the South Street Seaport, and brought to you by Chase. Welcome back to the holiday edition of Jalen Jacoby. And there was no gift that Jalen got this year than this soundbite from Mike Tyson. Let's listen to him talk about us.
But also, Tip and Mike and Tip.
I like that. Because I see Jalen Rose has his little guy with him, Jalen and Jacob.
Right. So
Jacoby and Jalen.
So I'll be the little guy.
Tip and Mike. Tip and Tyson.
Jalen Rose has his little guy with him, Jalen and Jacob. The best boxer I've ever seen in my entire life, the most entertaining fighter I've ever seen in my life, called me the little guy next to Jalen Rose. I guess this is a humbling holiday because I see how the world sees me now. I see how the world sees me as the little guy next to Jalen.
Those are two of my favorite people. Jacoby, we went in the podcast game for 10 years, dog. Before it was Spotify. Before it was Apple. We was doing this on YouTube and Periscope. We the OGs, dog. So shout to Mike Tyson, even knows your name, even knows about our show. And now look at how the podcast game has exploded. Shout to the Podfather Bill Simmons.
We can do it for another 10 years, and people will still consider me the little guy next to Jalen Rose. Well, food is a big part of coming together for the holidays, and we know one basketball player who left the bubble. Food's very important to him, too, and that, of course, is Lou Williams. Jalen, remind everybody on this holiday edition of the show, the saga of Lemon Pepper Lou.
So, it's not what you do, it's when you do it. And if you ever been to Magic City, you will understand. Those wings are to die for. I'm telling you, I have firsthand experience. I'm jealous that my name isn't on the menu. I get it. But during COVID-19 and a pandemic, when you leave for a family emergency, you can't now expose yourself to that environment to where now you have to come back in quarantine where you're missing practices, it's throwing off the team flow. And that's one of the things about the Clippers. They never really settled into the bubble, Jacoby. And I think that's ultimately why they got bounced by the Denver Nuggets, who were playing better basketball.
Lou Will got in trouble for eating wings at a gentleman's club in Atlanta. Little do people know, Jalen and Jacoby first met at a gentleman's club in Atlanta. Moving on, before we get fired, is something else that the world gave us during this very difficult time during the pandemic. There were no sports, but there was this, the versus battles. Jalen, you care more about the versus battles than you do about NBA matchups. Like, you care more about the versus battle matchups than NBA playoff matchups. And celebrate this new competition that we had in our lives in the culture.
Dog, I saw my aunties, Gladys and Patty. I saw my uncles, Snoop and DMX. I saw my brothers, Rekindle and Jeezy and Gucci. And then also, I got a chance to see my Bay Area brothers, Too Short and E40, put it down. Shout to my brothers Timbaland and Swiss Beats, who came up with the concept. This was like The Last Dance, or like D-Nice DJing. These were things that we needed during this pandemic to help bring us all together.
Yes, thank you so much for that, everyone involved with the versus battles. And Jalen, one thing that seems to happen more and more every year is there's just more and more Jalens in our life. But this one is my favorite. We're going to call it Jalen of the Week, but it's truly the Jalen of the Year. Jalen, you've mentioned this before, but one thing that rings true is all of the Jalens have a certain je ne sais quoi about them, including this young man named Jalen.
What?
No class.
Oh, that little kid has so much game with the ball and with his mouth. He said, Dada, is Noah trash? Answer, yes. Salute to that, Jalen.
Absolutely. Salute to my mom, Jeannie Rose, who created the name by combining my father, James, with my uncle, Leonard. And now just seeing that name become a common one. Like I told you, Jacoby, it's a superpower. Every time you see the name Jalen, the person doing something special. And shout to his brother Noah as the youngest for not pushing him down and destroying his confidence. Also, shout to the dad. Here's why. That's a fat crib. That's a fat crib, dog.
They got a full court. They got two hoops in the living room. They got a full court in the living room with the high ceilings. They can play a full court game on one-on-one in the crib. Big shout to Noah. Big shout to Jalen. And big shout to all the dads in the world. And all the moms.
Stay in school. Work on your grades and your handle equally. And all your goals and dreams will come true.
One thing he definitely does not need to work on is his trash talk, because he's got that part of the game all figured out. It is time for a special holiday edition of Cultural or Regional. Let's go. This one comes from one of our viewers, and it's an interesting question I can't wait to hear your answer to, and it is as follows. Actually wrapping gifts. Giving a gift unwrapped without a gift receipt, cultural or regional?
Hey, dog, this is cultural for sure. And the reason why, respectfully, it may take time to hustle up on the actual gift. There are a lot of you out there that after Thanksgiving and you want to do your Black Friday shopping and your Cyber Monday and you put down your credit card and you order everything and you feel like you're good. Or things happen in December, you see a sale, you go grab it when you get off work, you're good. But then there's those parents. I came from one of these families where sometimes those gifts don't happen between the last 12 to 24 hours.
Christmas Eve, I'm out in the streets.
Like for real, that gift might happen at like 9 o'clock or 3 in the morning, depending on what video game we're trying to bring to the crib. So therefore, if it's unwrapped, it just lets you know that somebody really put their heart and soul into that gift.
Yes.
So that's what I'll say it is.
My wife and I have established that Santa doesn't wrap gifts. Take that to
You don't
mean
have the time.
whatever you would like.
You don't
Spoiler
have the time.
alert. Moving on to our second and final cultural regional question from you, our viewers, is this: gumbo, is it cultural or regional?
Well, it's got to be regional, right? Like, I love broth and I love soup. It ain't nothing like
It's
gumbo
regional.
with extra meat, especially, or seafood gumbo. But this is definitely regional. And New Orleans has to come to mind anytime you're talking about gumbo.
Love gumbo. Love the holidays. Make sure you stay tuned. We have more for you on this special holiday edition of Jalen and Jacoby. Edition of Jalen and Jacoby. Jalen, one thing that has been consistent throughout 2020 is how bad Detroit sports have been, which led to this question from one of our viewers. They sent this in on Instagram, and they said the following: what is an appropriate time to start drinking when my family mentions Detroit sports on Christmas? Just to show you how bad Detroit sports have been, the Tigers have the worst winning percentage. The Lions have the 26th in the league. The Red Wings worst. The Pistons are just absolute trash. And we haven't even mentioned Michigan football. Jalen, what time is it appropriate to start drinking when people mention Detroit sports?
I'm still ride or die, loyal to my soil. And soon as you have eggs or your favorite breakfast meat, that's when it's time to have your first beverage if you're 21. Bloody Mary, mimosa. And as the day progresses, you switch it up and get stronger. You know the deal.
Well, let's hope that Detroit sports teams turn around next year, because it cannot be worse than it was this year. Holiday is about gathering together with friends and family and loved one, and we just want to take a second to acknowledge those that took time out of their difficult 2020 to join us here on this show. Jalen, what do you have to say about the guests that we've had here on Jalen and Jacoby?
We're so very fortunate, because for those that have been with us since day one, we started as a podcast 10 years ago. And then we were a late night television show. We were on ESPN2. And in 2020, we got on ESPN. And we pride ourselves on giving the people what they want. And we're really grateful to all of the people that took their time to join our program this year.
Absolutely. It's been so much fun having all these people on the show. And another thing I wanted to ask you, Jalen, is as we turn our attention toward 2021, what is your New Year resolution for next year?
I'm rocking one of them. You see, I kind of changed up the hair. I'm going to do this in 2021.
Like it. Like it.
But for society, I just hope that we get to a place where we don't have to wear masks and we're not physically distancing. I don't think that's going to change in 2021, but that's my resolution.
Yes, I just want, as a society, collectively, us to come together and beat this pandemic because I want to hug a friend again. I want to put my elbows on a bar again. I want to go to a restaurant. I want my kids to go to school. I want us to come together and beat the coronavirus. That is my resolution. Thank you so much for joining us on this very special holiday edition of Jalen and Jacoby.